Hey, Flowmies, it's time for another edition of the ITF Flowcast. This week, we're going to talk with Jake Hansen. He is the founder of LearnToCleanWindows.com. And if you haven't heard of the website yet, you got to go check it out. It is a really wonderful website for business owners to help to train new techs on how to get up to speed as quickly as possible. It covers things from, just very basic information about squeegees and about water-fed pole cleaning, those types of things, to some more technical aspects of window cleaning. But basically, it's just to help you get your brand new techs up to speed as quickly as possible. So we're going to talk all about that website in the interview, but we're also going to get to know Jake a little better. We're going to talk about how he got into the industry, how he went from working for someone to starting his own business to eventually selling his business, and all the things in between, things about avoiding burnout, how to make the decision of when to hire for the first time, the problems that come with that, how we can just help ourselves to be as efficient as possible as business owners. So we're going to get into all that. It's a really great interview. I know you're going to enjoy it. So now let's listen in as we talk with Jake Hansen. All right, Flowmies. Well, we're talking with Jake Hansen. How you doing, Mr. Jake?
I'm good. How are you doing, Gabe?
I'm doing awesome, man. Thanks so much for taking time to join us. I'm really looking forward to talking with you. You have a website called LearnToCleanWindows.com, and we'll get into more detail about that a little later. But first, I wanted just to kind of pick your brain a little bit, just see how did you get started in the window cleaning industry, and kind of how did you get your roots going on here to get you to where you're at now?
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. So I started back in, I think, 2009. I was kind of doing it for the summer, like in high school and stuff like that. And then I went on full time with a company. And then I was like, I kind of always wanted to own a business. I never knew what it was. And I never even knew like window cleaning was a job because my dad was like a total DIYer. So I didn't even know like service people will come to your house and like service anything. So it's such a,
you're like Dad thing. Always did it for us.
Right. Exactly. There was like, no, I'm like, who does that? There's no market for that. But this guy came up like at church and he was like, hey, you want to clean windows? And I was like, I had no idea what that meant. And it you know what I mean? I'm just thinking I'm going to go be a janitor. And I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll try it. So I went out with him and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool, and just kept learning every summer. And then I went like full time with them for about a year. And then I ended up starting my own company. So I kind of moved, in a different part of the county from him and started my own thing and started doing that I started that, I think, in 2011.
Okay.
And then I just sold the company last year. So I got to this point where like I wanted to try something different. I kind of got burnt out and it's a lot of work, and like I hustled for a lot of years and I was like, I want to go do something different. I've done this for 19 years and stuff. But I love the industry. Like I always saw it as like a kind of like a gold rush, because it's like there's glass everywhere and you can go out and get this equipment. And if you have that grind and that hustle, there's always work that you can go out and find and stuff. And that's kind of how I saw it. And I printed out, not all at once, but like over time, 20,000 postcards, and I got my equipment set up and I just went door to door and I was like handing out these postcards and stuff with coupons on them and got my first customer, and then just kept growing from there, and then got some commercial accounts and stuff. And, just grew from there. It was a grind, but it paid off, so.
Did you ever hire? Like, did you have employees?
Yeah, I got up to 6 guys, kind of at my peak. And then I kind of was jumping up and down from there based off of like season and stuff. Mm-hmm. Obviously everyone knows in this industry, like it slows down a lot. And so I had, a few core group of guys that I keep on like year round and stuff, no matter what. And that the hard thing about that is you just never know how brutal the winter is going to be with weather and stuff. Luckily,
that's the truth.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, it's like you're trying to keep your guys on and manage your cash flow and stuff. You don't have a lot coming in and stuff. So I would kind of cycle down to like 4 guys in the winter and then jump back up in the summer, give or take or whatever. So, but I kind of got stuck at that level for quite a few years. But yeah, and that's a whole nother, just ball game of dealing with employees and trying to hire and being the middleman between like your crews out on the field and your customer, and scheduling and workers' comp and all that. So I kind of saw this as like my education, for 8 years, I learned so much, and like, I'm just very grateful for the industry and what it's done for me,
That's awesome. That's very cool. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too right now. We were talking, me and you were talking just a little bit off before the interview. I'm at the point now. I've had as much as 8 techs at one time,
Mhm.
down to about 6. And we had such a slow summer because we get the monsoon rains in our area in Tucson, and we just die.
Yeah.
I probably have more work than most people,
Yeah.
because I do keep my advertising up, and we do get the calls, but we get
Yeah.
a lot of people who are like, oh, I like your ad, I like the deal, but can we book it in October?
Right.
And that doesn't help me.
Yeah.
That doesn't
Yeah.
help
You're
me
like,
in
I need
July
work
and
today,
August.
man. Come
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, keeping the guys working was definitely a
Yeah.
challenge. So I'm really thinking about just keeping a 4-man crew and just having one-man crews now, because I have most of them I do are 2-man, and then I'd have, like, 1 or 2 single guy, like a commercial route, for instance. I just would send
Yeah.
1 guy, I wouldn't send 2 guys on that. Or if I have a bunch of little houses in an area, I just send 1 guy on that.
Yeah.
But I think I'm just going to start doing that, and then just if we have a really big house, we might
Yeah.
send 2 people or 3 people in a truck. But I think I'm going to start getting to where, even if it means turning away customers, getting to where we can handle when we get slow. It's
Yeah.
not such a where I'm trying to have them mow my lawn just to give them hours.
Exactly. Exactly. We've done a lot of painting and other projects because of
Yeah,
that, man. And
exactly.
it's like, yeah,
My solar panels have never been so clean.
yeah, exactly. You're just trying to keep the guys busy and doing stuff,
Yeah.
and
Well,
it's just,
and I got one young guy too who came from Octopus Car Wash. I don't know if you guys have those up where you're at, but they're like this, franchise car wash. And so he's great. He's an awesome detailer. So I'll just say, you know what, just here's the trucks, go at them.
yeah. Yep, I had some
So.
guys that came from Jiffy Lube, so they would do all the oils and
Oh,
lubrication on the trucks
nice.
and stuff like that.
That's what I need to do. I need to go Jiffy Lube and
Jiffy Lube,
coach someone from there so they
Yeah.
can work on my truck. That's a
Exactly.
great idea.
Yeah, he had
Oh,
mechanic
man.
experience, so he did that, and then he did some stuff on the pressure washer, changing oil and maintenance on them. And then I had a graphic designer guy. I had all sorts of cool guys, and I tried to just like find their strengths and see what I could do with them, And then the other guys, I was like, oh, here's a stack of postcards, you go out and do these if you want, and or you can go home. So yeah, always trying to find something for them. I think that's one of the hardest parts about the industry is just the ups and downs of it. And
Yeah.
you get to your busy season and you're telling customers, oh, we're 2 weeks out, and it's like there's like, oh, you should just hire, and it's like, well, we weren't busy, this last winter or whatever, So it's a lot simpler to other people until you're the one trying to make everything flow all year round, with.
Well, I'm just more about the efficiency of it, and I just noticed when it was single man crews, we were right around $100 to $150 per man hour, and then with 2-man crews, it was always between 75 to 100.
Yeah.
And I just like, man, it just kills me that we're eating away at that, for profitability, and just we would keep the payroll down. We wouldn't cut it in half, but it would cut it, probably about 30 to 40%, and just be more efficient in how much profit we're making per job. The other thing too that happened is I would send these 2-man crews out, and they were fine on the bigger jobs, but they get to these smaller jobs, and we charge the customer $300, and they would be done in an hour.
Yeah.
And the customer starts doing the math, and they're like, wait a second, I paid $300 for an hour for 2 guys to come in for an hour. And they would start complaining, And in fact, we got one bad Google review. It wasn't a bad one. It was a 4-star, but it wasn't a 5-star. And he says, I would have given it 5-star. He says, but they're too expensive. They charged me $300 and they were there for an hour, And again, it's just the conception. So now if I have a guy in there and he's there for 3 hours, but we charge him $350, no alarm bells go off on that.
Right.
And so we can start keeping our prices at where they are, and not worry about someone complaining that we got it done too fast.
Isn't that so funny? It's such a weird thing that you just wouldn't really think of it until you're there and a customer saying that, and you're like, okay, how do I solve this problem? Well, maybe I need to spend more time there, and figure out how to do that.
That's why I started telling my guys. I said, you know what? If you got a $300 job and you're done in an hour, you you need to first do a thorough walkthrough, walk around, make sure because the worst is they're mad that you charge too much, and then there's drip somewhere or there's a streak. That's even worse. So I said, do a thorough walkthrough, and then offer to clean their mirrors for them, or offer them to clean their shower for them, or something else that you can add on that will make them feel like they're getting something extra for what they paid, But I think ultimately the best thing is just to, on those, especially those smaller jobs, just send one guy. That way they feel like they're getting their money's worth,
Absolutely. And that probably saves on drive time too. If you're not paying two guys that's in a truck to go from point A to B, if you have a lot of drive time, it's like that can really eat up. We went through that a lot in the winter where it's like our margins were just horrible because it's like you got to give your guys work, and even if the day's not efficient, I'd have like 3 guys in one truck running all over town, and sometimes like at the end of the day it was a break even, and it's like, man, this sucks, but at least like the guys got work and serve the customers, but it's not a good feeling at all.
No.
It's
and the other thing too is because we do most of our estimates online. We use Responsibid, so people enter it in, and they, but there's 20% or so that we do got to go on site. So a lot of times we'll fit them in on a route, with guys but that's the thing, if it's a big house and they're there for half an hour, if it took them 50 minutes to get there and then 15 minutes to go somewhere, we just paid, $50 to go do this estimate. And that's terrible, if you got 2 guys in a truck. So that will help with that for sure, in keeping those costs down on if we do have to do an in-house estimate. And usually I go to do them, I'll drive over, but sometimes we got to have the crews do it if it just makes sense, So it's just those business things, man. Just you learn it, you live and learn. You go and experience and make the mistakes, and then the smart guys learn from it. The other guys,
absolutely. That's how you learn, right? I made so many mistakes, man. I lost so much money, but I just had a few more wins than losses, and I did all right.
Yeah.
You
said you started in 2011. You said your business.
Yeah, I started my business in 2011.
So what was the scene like then with as far as social media or groups or anything like that? Were you part of the IWCA? Did you do anything where you got to network?
Yeah. What's funny is you said, I was just thinking about that earlier today and stuff, because I really I did the postcard. I did a lot of direct mail advertising, value packs and stuff that did really well. And I didn't I just don't recall as much stuff online as being as prevalent as it is today and stuff. And so I really didn't discover all these groups that are really active with guys you could connect with all over the country and stuff until I actually sold my company. So just in the last year, I've been listening to podcasts and going on YouTube. I worked and I had my head down cleaning windows, and I went home, and it was if I didn't really do any social media advertising and stuff like that. So there really wasn't a ton of resources that I knew about that were out there when I was actually running my company. And now I'm now that I've had the ability to take a step back and kind of look at things, I'm oh man, there's so much good stuff and good people out there that are just just putting YouTube videos out. It's you can learn so much from that, and I wish I would have kind of realized that earlier, but back in 2011, it just wasn't as much good stuff out there. There wasn't as many people doing stuff, and, so it's changed a lot. I mean, obviously there's a lot of junk online too, that's just not good either, but, I mean, I did a little bit of Facebook advertising, and I didn't get a great return from it, and maybe I wasn't doing it right, and so I ended up hiring companies, and a lot of companies were all about direct mail. And so I just kind of went that route, and I always got a really good return from it. And so that was like I said, that was my focus. I wasn't online a lot. I mean, I used my CRM and I served my customers and went home to be a dad and stuff, but I'm enjoying this. I'm in a bunch of these groups now and listening to podcasts, and I found yours the other day. So I'm oh, this is great, man. There's a lot of passionate people out there that and it's cool to have a connection, because it's being a business owner is kind of lonely because you're dealing with all the stuff that you're talking about. It's I dealt with that for 8 years, and I didn't my wife will listen to me, but at a certain point she's shut up. That's not my problem.
Exactly.
She only wants to hear it so many times. But it's when you have people like you that get what you're going through, and then you have different ideas, and you're oh, I tried this and I tried that. It's a neat concept, and I wish I would have had that, and I stay in touch with the guy that bought my company, and that's been
nice.
really fun, and working with him and like kind of doing it from an outsider perspective, but not
Yes.
having the stress of like the day to day with the business.
Yes.
So yeah, that's been kind of a cool thing, but
Yeah.
yeah, this is all new to me. So
Well, I kind of have a theory. I think it's about 10. I think it's 10 years. The companies older than 10 years had to learn so much on their own because they did not benefit from the
yeah,
social media, from the Facebook groups, from
yeah,
the networking. Because even with the IWCA, I mean, I've been cleaning windows since 2000,
uh-huh.
and I didn't hear about the IWCA until maybe
Right.
2015.
Yeah.
I
Isn't that
just I
crazy?
just didn't.
Yeah. I didn't know what I didn't
I
even know
wasn't
what
aware.
OSHA was when I
Yeah,
started, and it's
yeah,
like
or that it
all of a sudden I'm
applied.
like, wait, okay, there's a whole, I'm like, why isn't there more like safety stuff? Like, where can I get safety information? And that's when I started paying for the workers' comp and all that stuff. Cause I'm like, then it matters, right? You're like, okay, like I don't want someone getting hurt. I'm paying this expensive insurance. Like, and then you start learning all this stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a whole like government department, like this directed right at safety. And so then I started really getting into safety and stuff like that. So it's just funny. Like you don't know until you know. And it's like the guys that I worked for, like they didn't teach me that. I was like, oh, here's your tools. Like go out and clean a window 200 times in a row. And when it
Yes.
looks decent, you can move on to the next one. And that's kind of how I learned. But like I really like running the business and stuff. Like you start looking at things differently. And I mean, obviously I could have done more research, but I just didn't hear about this stuff. And like with the internet and these groups, like you can connect with people that are doing the same thing as you, going through the same things, and they can provide solutions to things like these organizations and stuff. That's really neat. So,
Right. Yeah. And I think like what you mentioned earlier about being able to talk shop with people who understand, that means so much because like you said, I feel like if when I talk to people at the IWCA or, I'm messaging on Facebook or whatever, it's
yeah,
actually enjoyable to talk shop.
yeah,
I don't
absolutely.
I don't enjoy talking shop when I'm on the job,
Yeah, I know.
because it's work.
Right.
Uh,
It's work. It's
um,
different. And this, like, yeah, and you can really relate to, and your employees will see things differently too, and your customers, than
Absolutely.
actually what you're going through.
Absolutely. When you're talking to other business owners,
Yeah.
and then they can commiserate. I think there's something to be said about talking to someone who understands what you're going through, but also feels bad for you. They feel like a sympathy
Yeah.
for you,
Yep. Yeah. You got
uh,
it. Yeah.
yeah, or I should say empathy. It's probably a better word, empathy for you because they're feeling what you're feeling.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's really important. So I guess that leads to the next question then. So you have your business, and then you decided to get out of it. You sold your business and start
Yeah.
something new. So first, what kind of led you to the decision? It sounds like you had a successful window cleaning business, and you decided, hey, I got to sell this and do something else. What was your thought process or circumstances that led to that?
Yeah. I mean, I got to this point where I got kind of stuck at this like 6-man level, like 3 trucks, and I was kind of just on the trucks, out of the trucks, and I felt stuck for a long time. But it was like I was doing the best I'd ever done. We're busy as ever. Like it was a good place to be. It took so long to get there, but I felt like really burnt out. And then I was doing this like I closed on this like the biggest job I ever got. It was a huge pressure washing job, and I went out there on a Saturday to work on it to try to get it done. And I slipped and I broke my ribs, and I almost hit my spine. And it was like, it sucked like everything out of me. I thought I was going to die. Like it was really scary. And luckily my air came back and I was like, okay, that was scary, and I got everything down. Went to the hospital and then they're like, yeah, you broke your ribs. So I'm like, man, so I got some painkillers and it was like, well, I have to get this job done. Like, and the job was so big. Me and another employee were trying to handle this one. And then I was like letting my other crew like handle the whole business. I was like, you guys got to run the business. And that was busy too. And then we're going to like bust this out, cause I didn't want to put all our resources on it. Cause then like, we're going to let go our little, our smaller clients or whatever. So I didn't really have anyone to get this job done. And this company was big. They wanted to get it done and they were putting pressure on me. And so I was like out there, on painkillers, broken ribs. Like I broke them on Saturday. I was out there Monday working and I was just like so frustrated. And I'm like, this is just like that part of like being self-employed that people just don't talk about. Like people online want to post like how much money they're making and this and that, but it's like there's a lot of burnout, you know what I mean? And like
Mhm.
there's a lot of consumption in it um that people don't talk about. Like it's like you're home with your kids and you're thinking
Yeah.
about like, there's guys that called me Saturday or Sunday night with a full week of work and they quit. And it's like, and those things just consume you. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's a lot of stress that like a lot of people don't really like want to talk about. And they want to talk about their wins and stuff like that, So I went through that and I was like, okay, I think I'm just at a point in my life where like I want to try something new. Like I need to be able to take work off when I break my ribs or like whatever, And so I my daughter was born later that year, my third daughter or my third child. And I think she was born on a Sunday, and it was like I had to go back to work a couple of days later because we just had all this work. And I was like, I was in this like place of business where like I didn't have to try very hard to get work, which was like that's everyone's, that's where everyone wants to be, right? Like you start off hustling, but it's like your problems don't go away, they just change, because now you have to get the work that you work so hard to get for years. Like you actually have to like do it now, And so
And you made a promise to do it.
right, exactly. And that's your reputation, and you build your reputation over all this time. You want to keep it, you want to maintain it. And it's like it takes one person to go on Yelp or Google and like taint your thing. So you really feel this responsibility of like bending over backwards for people a lot, And so I got like no time off for my daughter. And it was just like I just got to this point where I was like, I need to like my priorities kind of changed. Like I wasn't really in this like young, like hustling mindset anymore, where I just wanted like a steady, income. And like I wanted to go home and be a dad, And so I love, like I said, I love the industry. I love like entrepreneurship and everything, but I wanted to do something different, like bottom line. So I reached out to a guy to sell the company. It was like a large painting contractor, and that was going good. And then that fell through like last minute. So I got that, and I found another job that like a new career that I kind of wanted to go into. So I got a job, and then I was working with this guy to take over things and the crew and everything. Well, he backed out last minute because of COVID. It was right when COVID hit. This was like
Jimmy Crickets right then.
Yeah. So this was like April 1st of 2019 is when I was taking this new job, and I had this guy lined up, you know what I mean? So he was like, dude, I don't know what's going to happen. And that was like the first couple of cases were like in March. So like in April, I'm taking a new job, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And so I kind of talked to my crew and sat them down and stuff. And I was like, here's where I'm at. And I started selling some equipment, and I met this guy that wanted to buy some stuff. And then he's like, oh, I want your company. And I was like, all right, well, make me an offer, and he made me an offer, and I was like, yeah, that works out great. And he's a great guy, and he's killing it. He's doing great. It did get downsized a little bit because a lot of my crew moved on. And so he's like building it back up with a new crew and stuff like that. But I've been able to like help him and mentor him and stuff. And yeah, I mean, it was kind of just like a win-win for everyone, so it wasn't as smooth as like I had anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
But
COVID tended to take a lot of smoothness out of everybody's sales.
It really did. You know what I mean? It really did. And I think it was like the unknown of everyone. And that's why this guy backed out. You know what I mean? And it's like, I couldn't blame him. It was really frustrating because then I would just left with like, what do I do? Do I not take this job or like what? You know what I mean? Because I didn't want to just, shut the business down and do it that way. It was like, I spent so many years building this, like this has value to the right person, So yeah, that's kind of why I got out of it, like I and I'll talk about like what I'm doing now, like in a later question or whatever. But yeah, I like, there's things I miss about it, for sure. I definitely like, it was part of my life for so many years. I'm like, I love it, but I'm happy, with where I'm at and stuff. And I get to kind of clock out and be a dad and get vacation time and all that stuff is just like really, really nice to be able to be there for my kids, So, and I think now, like, California is really like, there's a lot of regulation. The state is very, very hard to deal with, and I think I wouldn't mind going back into the industry with like, taking a step back and thinking about things a lot more, but probably in a different state, and that's something that my wife and I talked about over the years. I don't know if that's going to happen, but yeah, not ruling out any possibilities, at all. So.
Awesome. Well, I totally feel you on the overworking thing. I think that is, out of everything, that's the trap that new business owners fall into, because hiring's scary. And
Yeah.
if you're in a state where you have to pay workers' comp, that's a huge investment. I mean, that's a
Right.
huge jump in
Yeah.
what you're going to have to pay for payroll. If you're
Yeah.
if you're lumping the cost of workers' comp in there, and if you've got just one guy, and
Mhm.
you're just
Yep.
starting out, you've got to pay the state wage, which is going to be thousands of
Yeah.
dollars. So to make the jump, it really has to be worth it, to
Right.
you to do that. On the other hand, it does give you a degree of freedom that you can't get as long
Right.
as you have control of the business, and that's
Yeah.
that I think that's the thing is it's easy to fall into that trap of letting the business run you,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
and when you get the biggest thing that I had to fight when I was at that point of trying to decide whether to stay put or to grow was the Sunday work,
Yeah. I
and
know.
when you have the overflow and that customer calls that you love so much and they
Yeah.
need you at this certain time and you don't have any more spots in the schedule and you're like, all right, I'll fit you in on Sunday because you're such a good customer, and they get all happy. But now
Yeah.
you're working on Sundays and now you're 7 days a
I
week, and
know. Yeah.
I got to that point and I thankfully backed off of it, and I had to kind of put those boundaries of nope, Saturday and Sunday I'm not working on those days. Like
Yeah.
there may be some times where it comes up, but it's going to be few and far between. I'm not going to make it a regular thing in my schedule, but I see a lot of guys who don't learn that lesson and they are
Yeah.
working 6 and 7 days, and like you said, I just don't think they believe that they'll ever burn out.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
And
And I thought the same thing because I started when I was young, and you think you're invincible when you're young, you know? And like I was saying earlier, I just saw it as like this gold mine of like I can clean every window in this county, and like I can do every one. And like my idea of building a business, like at that time, would just be like so overly nice to people and bend over backwards no matter what.
Mhm.
And it's like when you do that for so many years, like people take advantage of you, you know
They
what I
do.
mean? And then all of a sudden you have to like put the brakes on and start dealing with people in a more I don't know, the systematic way where you're just like, hey, here's our terms and conditions. Here's how we're gonna do your job, and like we're gonna come in with our crew and we're gonna do it. This is how much it's gonna be. Like take it or leave it. And I got a lot better at that by the end, but it's very hard to like reverse that because in the beginning you do need work and you need to like develop the relationship with customers, But
Absolutely.
then later, and the guy that took over my company, it was like I could see from the beginning he was like me, whereas like he wanted to do everything and like do it. And I'm like, you need to set boundaries with people. You know what I mean? It's like you need to protect your time because eventually you're gonna run out of time and people are gonna be like, can you come out on the weekend? Can you do this? I have a party on Monday, and they're gonna be a good customer. And you have to learn to put those boundaries on people, and if they like you, and I'm sure they do, then it's like they'll schedule out, and then you can be like, look, I have employees on staff, like we have to keep a steady workflow. I can't just have someone at your house overnight because they're sitting around waiting for your call. It doesn't work like that. I mean, sometimes it works, like sometimes it's great, you can fill a job in at the end of the day, but it doesn't, and I think what I really learned is the people that like that respected that and understood that were like the best clients. You know what I mean? They were like willing to pay top dollar, and they're willing to take, I mean, they're tipping the guys, buying them lunch and all this stuff. And it's like, those are the people that you want, and it takes time to get them, but like they appreciate your business and the way that it runs when it runs properly. You know what I mean? And it's the
Mhm.
people that are going to take advantage of you are the ones that they're not going to tip, and they're going to always call you
Absolutely.
last minute no matter what. And
And they're going to complain
they're
about
going to
everything.
complain. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's so frustrating, but um, yeah, so that was my biggest lesson probably by the end of my career is just like, and I got good with like the no weekend thing, but I think it was just the constant like because my problems changed into like managing employees, and it was like you're trying it's just very it's difficult, I mean, it was really hard to hire, and it got to this point, and like I know a lot of employers are feeling this right now,
Yes.
but I felt like I felt it, 2 or 3 years ago, where it's like I was like begging people to work for me. You know what I mean? Like I would put ads. I cut off all our advertising. I started marketing like, hey, we're hiring, and I was paying more than a lot of other people. And it's still it was so difficult to just get a resume, and then you get one and it's like, oh, that's like the best I can get, and it's like it's not like I was lowballing wages or anything, you know what I mean? I was doing signing bonuses and all kinds of stuff. And um Yeah, it's hard. And now I see people all, on the news and stuff, all these employers, like not just our industry, but every industry is really struggling right now. And it's like, I can empathize with that. It's difficult to get, employees to want to show up and be in a place where they feel like they need their job as much as you need them, because it's like when they can go on unemployment or do like they have other opportunities constantly in front of them. That's like, kind of carrot in front of the nose. It's like, how do you maintain them? Like as an employer, you're paying all the overhead that they don't see, like the workers' comp, employer taxes, the liability insurance, all those kinds of things. And then, vehicle insurance, their uniforms, all their equipment, like you're paying for those things and they don't really see it like that. They just think, oh, this is how much the boss makes and this is how much I make. What the heck? I should be making more money,
Yes.
And it's frustrating because you get to this, kind of place where it's like you wish they understood that, because then they could understand like the margins and how businesses operate. It's not just like in government regulation, kind of what that does to businesses and stuff, and how difficult it makes it for people to make a living wage when you have to pay all this overhead costs. It's like our workers' comp was like 27%, and then it's like you add in all the other stuff, like our payroll cost like per hour was about 50%. So like if someone, let's say they made $10 an hour, we're paying $15 an hour to have that guy on the field, and that just goes up as people made more money. And so like, that's a lot of money, that's going out away to other things that they'll never probably see. You know what I mean?
And I think that's also, well, I don't want to say everyone should do it. I personally do this. I educate my techs on our overhead.
Yeah.
I want them to understand that, just because we get a check that comes in from a job and it's, they made the business $1,000 for that day.
Yeah.
How much of that $1,000 actually gets to the business after taking it out,
right.
And I don't, obviously I don't sit them down and I don't show them facts and figures, but I do say, hey, I had to pay workers' comp. This is how much I paid workers' comp, everybody. Hey, I just replaced this ladder. Guess how much this ladder cost everybody? Hey, you like that new squeegee I bought you? This is how much the bill was on my equipment. Hey, I just ordered new rubbers. And I do. And I tell them the prices because I want them to understand. I want them to visualize themselves starting their own business and how much they would have to pay to run their business, because that's the number one thing of why we lose good employees. It's easy to start a window cleaning business. And as they work for you, they're gaining the skills technically that they can start their own business. So I want them to understand that running the business is a whole different thing than starting the business. And so I'm very open with the expenses that we incur, and I tell them when I can, because I want them to understand that this is not just, $1,000 just went into Gabe's bank account and now he can go on a vacation or whatever, that. And so, but again, that's just my view. I don't think everybody needs to do that. But for me, I want my techs to understand that I have a job that is totally different from theirs.
Absolutely.
And even though I may work with them on a house shoulder to shoulder, I'm not a tech. I have other things I'm helping, but I'm not a tech. I don't just get a paycheck, and there's a whole other work, a whole other range of work that I do that I will never see $1 for, just because I'm working on the business and I'm keeping the business going and functioning and healthy and profitable, and that takes work that they don't ever see.
Yeah, absolutely. And something you mentioned earlier is like those retained earnings that you are making, like that money goes back into the winter time where you're trying to keep guys on, right? Like cleaning your solar panels and cleaning the trucks and doing all those things, and it's like, I tried to focus a lot on that, is like taking care of my guys really good in the winter. And the worst part about that is they could leave right when you get busy again, and I had that happen a couple times. You just don't have a ton of control. Like I would kind of ask guys like respectfully, like, hey, if you're going to leave, but otherwise, well, I didn't say it like that, but I said, look, hey, we're going to, keep you guys going through the winter and stuff. And if we got, a good chunk of rain, it was like, I could spend all my profits from the summer going into that winter, but I kind of ended up going, I was never a huge fan of commercial accounts. Like because I always saw commercial as like little storefronts and stuff like that. It's like I would go bid those for, $30, and someone comes and does it for 10. And it's like, oh, forget this, dude. I'm not even gonna, when I started, I was like, oh, I'm gonna get a whole shopping mall. Like this will be great. But what I did get into is like some car dealerships, and then the wine industry grew like crazy here, and so we really got really big in the wine industry, and like all these tastings and stuff had really crazy like architecture, and so those jobs were anywhere from 300 to like thousands every month, and so we got really into that stuff, and so that was like cash flow in the winter, and I kind of I started figuring out like my fixed expenses and looking at like my commercial accounts, like regular income, outside of like residential jobs. And I kind of built that up to cover all my fixed expenses, including like a salary for myself. So that way, like our crew stay busy with that all winter, doing that. And then we kind of split up in the summer when we're busier, and some guys would be doing that stuff and other guys would be out on residential jobs, and that helped a lot. But yeah, it's expensive. It is, a lot of overhead that you just wouldn't think. And I think when you start too, like, you think that, like I thought like, okay, when I hit $10,000 a month, like that's like when I made it, you know what I mean? And then I hit $10,000 a month and I was like, oh my gosh, look at all my expenses, man. Like this isn't like this isn't it, and it's like, and that was a good learning experience to realize like the overhead. Cause when you're pushing that, and you're trying to grow and stuff like that, it costs money. And you said, like, I remember my first like real employee and getting the workers' comp all set up. And that it was so much work. And then going through the audit at the end of the year, and they're like, you owe us more money and blah. It was like, oh, dude, this is horrible. But then after you get a few guys on it and you kind of start looking at how the numbers work and stuff and understanding the process, it's not bad. But making that jump from like none to like one, it's almost not worth it. Like, I mean, I know that's why a lot of guys jump up to one and then they go, forget this, and they go back down.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
That's what I did. I hired. Yeah. I hired and then retreated. Yeah. I got scared off once ever I saw all the numbers come in,
Yeah.
And then but like you said, I call it there's a busting through phase.
Yeah.
So if you want to grow and you want to expand your business, you have to be willing and save money aside to bust through the understanding that the earning less than what you're used to is an investment in the growth of that business.
Absolutely.
And after you hire that employee, then it grows, your profits grow exponentially. And then you hire the next one, another exponential jump. So it's sometimes you view it as a linear, and it's not, it's exponential, it goes up. So that's why it's worth it. But you have to have the work to justify that.
Yeah.
If you're just barely getting to where you need a helper, that's not the time to hire.
Right.
That's the time either to have a sub come and assist you every once in a while, or you just muscle it until you get enough work where you can justify bringing that person on, for sure.
Yeah. No, that's a hard.
And sometimes it's picking up a big account. If you might get a big account and that justifies it. That's now that's now the reason to hire.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I think the hardest jump in the business is to go to that, because you really have to be willing to share your money, and it's not just with the employee, but it's with everything else that goes along with that. I mean, it's just like everything jumps up from there, and once you're kind of in the system, like I realize that it's like there's anyone can go down to Home Depot and buy cheap stuff and say that they're a window cleaner and stuff. And you're competing with those guys, because when you go to someone's house and it's like, well, this guy, has a nice business card. You have a nice business card. And like, what's the difference on this? You know what I mean? He's a nice guy. You're a nice guy. And it's like, there's a lot of paper money that people that are paying for to have you out. And they don't realize that, you know what I mean? They don't understand how it protects them. And guys will, oh yeah, we're licensed and insured. And it's like, that's a very like broad statement when you look at like what that means. You know what I mean? Because like if I have liability insurance, that protects me like as a business owner, but doesn't necessarily protect the consumer. Right. Like if they sue the business, then like, yeah, that protects me. Right. But like, I mean, obviously if you totally screw up and like burn their house down, like that would protect the consumer. But overall liability is for the business consumer, or the business's liability. And you have workers' comp, which protects the consumer against someone getting hurt on their property, which is a huge liability. If someone falls off a roof, then and they're not covered, like that could be on them. And I know every state's different, that's how it is in California and stuff. And so you get all these guys running around with like the cheapest like liability insurance policy claiming this, and one thing that I did, like I got my D63 California contractor's license. And so that's for like post-construction work and stuff.
Oh,
So
interesting.
when I went out and I did bids, so I only needed that license for construction cleanup jobs over $500, but that really like opened doors for some really
Sure.
neat like accounts and government jobs and stuff. But what I would go is I go to the consumer and I'd be like, okay, well, we'll beat anyone's price by 10%. And I really raised my prices when I did this. I said, we'll be the lowest guy, 10%. But I was like, he needs to have his contractor's license. He needs to have his county license, his city license, his workers' comp, his liability insurance, and contractor's bond. And like when I laid that out in front of them and I showed it in the estimate and I forced them to look at this and compare apples to apples, I was like charging twice what other people were charging and closing almost every deal. Cause now people understood like,
Brilliant.
oh, this is how this stuff actually protects me and pertains to me. And I'm going to go to this other guy and say, hey, do you have this? And I would tell people like, I don't know anyone in the area that has this, by the way. Like, if you want to do the legwork and find them, I'll beat the price by 10%. But the bottom line is, if someone has that, you know, they're going to be more expensive because they can't afford to run the company to be legit like that and actually charge, you know, these low prices and stuff. But that took a lot of years to kind of break into that, you know, and being that confident, you know, in your pricing and like how much you're charging people and stuff. Because especially when you have employees, you know, you want to keep that work coming in for them and stuff. And so I would do more negotiating in my early days. And then it kind of got to this point where it was like, yeah, sorry, like I know my numbers and I have enough experience. Like I know what this job is going to take, you know, and I'm not like a charity, you know, like you got to go out and make money. I got to keep my staff on, keep them trained and, you know, all that. So yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. I love that as a brilliant strategy of saying I'll beat them by 10%, but they have to show this, and this, and then that makes you just stand out above everybody. Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, I was going to the city, like I was going to local city work and I was going to like huge, like prevailing wage, like contracts and stuff. And like, I worked for a contractor that did, so it was like prevailing wage, but it was post-construction and that was like on schools and stuff. So he did like local community colleges, he built them and I had just like a relationship with him. And I told him, cause he's like, every time like the city and and this guy and like a bunch of other contractors, they go, oh, we got to get 3 bids. Every time we got to get 3 bids. I was like, all right, well, I'll tell you, I'll be the lowest bid every time. I promise you that, but this is what he needs to have. You know what I mean? And it would like kind of get him off, you know, off guard. But then it was like, I'd win almost every time because it would make him compare, like force people to look at this stuff that they're not going to look at normally. Cause everyone wants a lower price, right? Like everyone, they want the best service at the best price, you know? And that was huge, you know, for helping me close some deals and stuff. And we had a cool like estimate system that like helped us like kind of lay it all out for people so they could read through it and look at this stuff, you know. And then some people don't care. They just whatever, yeah, give me the price and let's do it, you know. So everyone's different, you know, but that helped with a lot of big jobs that I just knew I could bid and get. So
very cool. Very cool. Well, why don't we talk about your website? So you started this new company. And it is learntocleanwindows.com. And why don't you tell us how where this idea came from, why you talked a little bit about your desire to get out of the business, but what this business does for you and how it's been working out.
Yeah. So I basically like, I was done with that, you know, and I kind of always had that, like, I still have my entrepreneur bug. Like I love the business and I learned a lot. I was like, I was thinking like, okay, if I do something else, like I have better knowledge, you know, I'm going to do it this way or that way or whatever. And my new job kind of gives me like a lot of free time so I can do stuff like at work or whatever. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to like, I had a lot of this stuff like written out and designed for like my company and stuff like that. But I want to, I'm like, I wonder if I could lay this out like on a website. So I kind of had this like these training systems like developing as I have my company and stuff. But then the idea for me came like, oh, this is like really useful. And like, I bet other people could use this too, you know? And so I started going onto these like Facebook groups and stuff. And that's when I started, like I said, getting kind of more into the like online social media and networking with people. And a lot of people are like, oh, how do you hire, you know? And like a huge part of this business for me was, like it slows down in the winter and then it blows up, you know, in the summer. And it's like, you have to deal with these huge dips and then you have to go hire and train guys really quickly. And like, I would assume that like most people listening to this are like probably business owners or they're, you know, the business owner is the guy that's going to go out or girl and go out and do the research and like, you'll stay up late and you'll do that, you know, you just never really turn off. And and so how do you take like 10 years of research and like all this practice out on the field and give it to a new employee in like a week or two to get them out on the field and have them like with the same knowledge that you have like out there, And so that's kind of where the idea developed, is like, oh, maybe this is like something I could create and other people could use it, so that way they could get their guys out on the field, quickly. And so I kind of built the website like 2 or 3 times and deleted the entire thing, because I was like, no, it doesn't feel right. Like, it took me 3 years, to get to the point where like I launched it. And just because I wanted the layout to be right, whereas like every piece of information that you need for your crew has like to be in a specific place, to where like you can access it when you want it. Because like there's a lot of things out there. Like I could send a guy, back east to go train on like lifts or like whatever to do different stuff. But like, what if I hire him today and I need him trained by next week? Like I can't afford to have him. Or like, what if he's been with me for 6 months and like now I need him trained?
Right.
I want a safety meeting to go on a lift. Like we have a lift work tomorrow. So like maybe we're not doing that every day, but like I need that in front of me to like go over with my crew, get them safe, go over the lift safety. Do you guys have any questions? Okay, let's go out there, And so I basically wanted to put as much organized information as I could in front of like employers and employees, so that way they can use these resources to quickly train their guys up and get them out on the field. And one thing like I really took to heart when I built this is like, I really didn't want to create it where it was like controversial, like, oh, like water fed pool is the best. And if those arguments, you know what I mean? Like this soap's the best.
Yeah.
You need to use this machine. And like, I didn't want to
brand of squeegee.
Yes, exactly. I really kept it as neutral, because I wanted a guy in like California to be able to use it, but also a guy in New York or, Florida. And surprisingly, I've had a lot of interest from the UK and Australia.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And I think because maybe they're slower right now, they might be in their winter. So like there's a lot of guys in those areas that are looking at it and they love it, and some have bought it and stuff. So yeah, basically what my focus was like safety, efficiency, and quality work, like no property damage, So everything that I looked through, like that you would do as a window cleaner, I really looked at like, okay, what's the safest way to do this, most efficient, and like, how do you avoid, property damage, or like you want it to look good. And so everything I did, like basically broke it down to that. And so there's definitely things like missing in there. Like it'll talk about, a bucket and stuff, but it doesn't teach you how to like make a bucket. Like it doesn't talk about like,
right.
You know what I mean? I intentionally left that stuff out. So like you as a business owner can put a guy through this. He's going to have this like general knowledge of like types of windows and screens and all this different types of stuff. But then you get to go take them out on the field and be like, okay, this is how we make a bucket, and this is how your belt setup is going to look. Here's the type of tools that are going to be on your belt, and they get the steel wool in their hand or like a polishing pad, and they know don't use that on tint or whatever. And another thing I dealt with a lot was like, and I'll never know, but it was like, I would train a guy and then go out on the field and he would mess something up. And it was like, oh, you were taught this. Oh, no, you didn't teach me that. And it's like, oh, well, did I not? Or maybe I thought I did, maybe I didn't, I don't know. And so I got a lot of like, he said, she said, so I'm like, okay, my training systems are just disorganized, and I need to have like something where they can sit down, learn about it, ask questions, take a test to make sure they understand it. And then we'll get them out on the field, So this was kind of like a passion project to me, you know what I mean? And what I love about it is like, I can communicate with people that are all over. Like I thought it would just be US, but now it's like all over the world. I can communicate with people and I can learn from them, and like, oh, you had this issue over here. Well, let's put that in the platform so other guys can learn from like your mistakes, and their employees, can learn from it. And like you said, you as the business owner, you have so many other things going on. Like, I think it's okay for them to be a better tech than you. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
let guys be the best out on the field so you can like run your business, Yes. And so my idea for it was really that is like, let people train their employees, and then I can have a platform where I'm communicating with people, seeing what's going on, seeing what's working and what's not. And I can update that. And now you're getting universal, this universal knowledge in the industry across the world that other people can use, So that was kind of my vision for it.
Well, why don't we take a look at it? We won't go through everything, because Flowmies, you got to pay for this if you want to get into it. And if you're listening on any audio streaming service, you're going to want to go to YouTube and take a look, because he has this website organized so nicely. And a lot of it that it covers is very basic, because it is meant to help someone with zero window cleaning experience learn a lot really fast. And the way the whole website is organized is just something. So let's go ahead. We're not going to, like I said, we're not going to look at everything, but there's just a few modules that I did definitely want to check out. So I'm going to share the screen here for us. So here's the website where it has the modules. This is the portion. And I mean, like I said, so it's got window cleaning, water fed pole, post construction, pole work, ladder work, fall protection, squeegees, safety instruction, vehicle safety. These are all different sections that people can read through. So let's go into window cleaning, for instance. So here in this module, again, a lot of this is very basic. It talks about the panes, what a dual pane is, what the sash is on there, the components. You can see all the different little figures that new people can look at to kind of learn the basic terms. But the one that I really appreciated, because this seems to be the thing that comes up the most with new techs, and that's screens. There are so many different kinds of screens, and a lot of times people don't even think about it. First off, I love this particular figure right here. This with the pressures. You want to put the pressures in the corners, not in the middle. Oh my gosh, how many times have we had new techs?
Right? It's just so unnecessary. It's like, dude, you can put a little pressure. You get the right spot, but dude, it's like,
yes,
so frustrating.
And then you have it broken down. There's some that just will have springs with the little tabs on the bottom. Others will have pull tabs that you got to do. Others will have flick tabs. The one that I love, because this, and at least in my area, these are very rare, but we do have them.
Yeah,
are the hanging screens.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had techs sit there like for 20 minutes trying to figure out how to take the screen off.
Yeah.
And I have to walk over and show them, no, it's a hanging screen. It's really easy, pop it off,
Yeah.
But I think what the value of this for new guys is, it just right away, it informs them of things that like we may not come on to until maybe like 2 months of them working with us.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you've got this screen that they've never seen. Yeah. And now they're stumped. Now at least they've had an exposure. Now will they remember on how to deal with it? Probably not, but at least now they know to identify, hey, this is one of those screens that we learned in the learning module that we got into. Yeah, I love it. So how much work came into this particular module here?
So like right now I'm like a lot faster at building them. Like honestly, the safety stuff is like what's probably the hardest to go through, because the content is like, yes. I really wanted to make sure that I had that figured out, there's, but the window cleaning stuff I know. So it's really just like getting a layout and then breaking down like, okay, here's the designs I want to do. And I taught myself graphic design. That was always something I did every winter. Like I get all my marketing lined up and stuff. And I found that it's kind of hard to, like get people involved, and then you're like emailing back and forth and it doesn't look quite right. So I was like, oh, I should learn some like design work to like help my marketing and stuff like that. And so I got really into that. And so now my designs have gotten a lot faster. And the cool thing about like the stuff that I use is like, I can take like different pieces. Like if I make a screen, I can put it on different types of windows, and so yes. my stuff has gotten a lot faster as I developed like a huge portfolio of like different designs and water fed pools and stuff. And I can create the exact like situation that I want to like show up on, and then my last like probably year of business, I wore GoPro almost every day. So I have a ton of footage that I'm like, this whole site right now is kind of my minimum viable product. I've got a lot more stuff coming out that's going to be great, and more modules and stuff like that. So yeah. Well,
right now I'm in the section on the water fed pole work, and this also I just love using a water fed pole is one of those that I think sometimes we speed new people in, because the actual cleaning is not super complicated,
right?
But you do a good job of really breaking down what are all the different aspects of that, from the filtration process, what TDS is, how to measure that, and then, all the different components of water-fed work. But what I love is when you talk about the jets there, you explain the different types of glass, hydrophilic, hydrophobic. Also, you just show how to do it, get the edges up and down, side to side, swirling, and then the final rinse. And I think that's the part. Sometimes our new guys come up and you'll show them and you'll do it properly, But then once they do it, they might do it right the first couple times, and then pretty soon, the 10th
Yeah.
window, they're just scrubbing and then rinsing and going on to the next one.
Exactly. And it's like a lot of people just think it's like hosing down the window. I heard that so many times. Oh, the last guy hosed down my window. And it's like,
Right.
there's a technique to this. Obviously there's safety concerns that I go over in here too, but there's a technique to this, to getting it right, and then troubleshooting and doing different stuff and going back and checking your work before you finish. I've had guys like they finished 30 windows and it looks like crap, and they never went back to go look at 5 windows prior. And it's like, man, if you just made an effort to go look, and so all those things are in here, to make sure that people, kind of understand that and are getting it. So yeah, I really try to break things down as much as I could. So that way I was like, they kind of understand, they're not just told hey, you got to rinse this good. They understand hey, if you don't rinse it good, here's probably what's going to happen. You got to make sure that you're doing your training and you kind of understand the backstory of why we actually do things, and I think that's what comes down to that experience where you can get people all that knowledge at once, and I mean, these things, I wouldn't recommend putting an employee down and go through all this all at once. I think this is hey, let's focus on safety and the basics of window cleaning, and then some field training, right? And then you go back in and you jump into something else, and you could even have them blow through this, go out on the field, and then come back to it slowly after they've seen some stuff, after they see your setup and stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of ways that you could use this, and I have a download section, and it's got a training layout, and that was for people that wanted to kind of break down all the training. So it's okay, you're going to sit down on the computer, you're going to go through this, and you're going to go through this, and then you'll go out and field training and kind of breaking down the pay on that, so okay, you're going to start at $18 an hour or whatever, go through this, and then as you understand these modules, and then you have your field training and your you can clean a window yourself, okay, let's bump you up to the next section, because the vehicle safety one, I have one on vehicle safety, but it's if they're not driving, then you may not want to spend money putting them through that module, you know what I mean? And it's put them through what's important to you, and get them, trained up and get them on the field making you money, and then kind of develop your systems from there, Yeah.
Now I'm in the section for squeegees. And what I really appreciate about this, when it talks all the basics on squeegees, the different types of rubbers, what the channel is and all that. But you have a part here where you talk about the problems with it. So that sometimes your channel can get damaged, and you might have a bent channel, and it has a little image of a squeegee coming down. There's a big old gap, in the middle. And that tells you that your channel is bent, and now not all the rubber is hitting the glass. And then also, if you get a little nick in your rubber, you might see. And I think that's very valuable for a new person, because I know when they're just starting to learn how to fan, a lot of times they're thinking, oh, I'm just not doing this right.
Yeah.
What am I doing wrong? Excuse me. Sorry about that. And so this really helps them to see that, no, this may not just be you, no doubt you have things you got to learn, but this is actually most likely a problem with the actual squeegee, and then they can come and talk to you and work out the problem, So that way they're not wasting time. Also, I love this part here. This is the different problems with inserting your rubber in the channel, because this does happen with our new guys, because they don't know, they're just learning.
Yeah.
And they may do the first one right, and then you assume they got it, and then pretty soon they got issues. They got overstretched, they got it compressed, over compressed, you get a little kind of bulging there. And then you explain the different motions, the straight pulls, the fanning, and then just, I just really impressed with the website. And as I was looking through the different modules, I was just like, man, this totally would save so much time, to be able to have it all in one little place. Like you said, not dump it all on them at once and just have them watch it through one whole day. And then now you're a window cleaner, but watch one part, get them in the field, have them watch another one, get them in the field again. And then as they watch them, maybe little things are going to start, kind of little puzzle pieces are fitting together now as they're getting it. And problems that they may have seen in the field, now they're figuring out as they read the modules, oh, this is what the problem is. This is what I'm having issues with, so to kind of get those early bumps out of the way, so that they can continue to progress and become a skilled tech.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned this earlier, but just if you want to show them what a casement window is, like you may not be on a job like that, or they may not be on a job like that for a little while, you know? And so having something like this kind of puts it in front of them before they see it, where like I said, they may not remember it, but it could be one of those things where it's like, you know, they do. And it's like, oh yeah, I remember the cranks on this or whatever, you know, and having that. And then it's like, this was kind of my first, you know, my MVP, my minimum viable product. And it's like putting it out there. I've gotten a great response back. I actually like, I've gotten less response than I thought. Like guys are like, this is awesome. And that's pretty much all they give me. And they're like, oh, this will be great for, well, I'm like, give me something back that like, let's make it better. You know what I mean? Tell me what it's missing and stuff. And I'm not like, oh, I guess I'm bragging a little bit, but it's one of those things where it's like, I spent a lot of time on it, you know, to get the right stuff out there. And so it's like, I want feedback. I want guys to tell me, you know what I mean, their thoughts on it and like how we can make it better as like a community and get better trucks on the field. And, you know, the goal is like, have you focusing on stuff as the business owner, you know, where you're not the best tech on the field. Maybe you're the worst because you haven't done all the modules, but your guys have, you know, and so they know that stuff. And then it's like, I can update it from here. And I have a lot of, like I'm working on a module for solar panel cleaning right now and pressure washing. I don't know when those will come out. I've got some new videos. I'm hoping to come out this month. So I'm always working on things. Lots of new safety meetings will be coming out. That was another page that was on there. Is like,
yeah, I saw that too. That was great.
And it's like back to my point earlier that like if you have a job, you know, next week that focuses, or it's going to be hot, right? You like there's safety meetings for heat. So like, let's go over that. Or if it's going to be cold, you go over a cold one. We have lift stuff on there. We have pressure washing, safety meetings, just all this stuff. And like I said, it's in front of you when you need it. You know what I mean? It's and my goal was keep it, you know, at a price point where people like, if they have the one employee, like it's worth it for them. I think at this price point. And like, as they grow, they'll become kind of more dependent on it, you know? And so it's like, if I can help someone grow from one employee to 2 to 3 to 4, then it's like, I feel like I've done my job, you know, and hopefully give them more time at home and more time with their family and to be kind of, you know, work on their business instead of in it necessarily. So,
yeah, absolutely. Very good. Well, we're just about out of time, but are there some tips that you can give to the Flowmies on just training in general? Things that maybe as you've kind of gone through this whole process of forming this website, little things that maybe people miss or forget or don't do that can just give them headaches that otherwise they might be able to avoid?
I think like from what I've learned probably over the years is just like that repetition of training. Like training isn't like a one-time thing. Like in my new job now, like we train constantly for like the what ifs, you know, and it's like, it's easy to get complacent, you know, like if you do a lot of lift work, it's like, oh, well, I do this all the time, so I don't need to like go to the training. But it's like that, well, that's when you get complacent. And then if you don't do it a lot of time, you forget it, right? So it's like either way, I think just going over those things like constantly, just putting it in front of your guys. So it's like they have, you know, just a safety like focus, like they roll up to the job. And like as a business owner, I realize I think like that all the time, but like your employees probably don't. Like they're not paying that workers' comp bill. I mean, obviously it's in everyone's best interest not to get hurt, but like to push like a safety focus and,
right.
And like you know, they're just going to look at things differently. So I think repetition for sure is just putting stuff out in front of people regularly, even if it's like a 1 or 2 minute meeting, you know, at the beginning of every day, like go over your jobs and then go over like, how can we be safer? How can we be better and be more efficient? You know, let's look at that as a company and like get feedback and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's it.
Excellent. I think that's smart too, because employees, they're smart. And if you're a boss and you are continually saying the same thing over and over again, that sends the message, hey, this is important to me.
Yeah.
If I'm telling you after you already know, and I'm still telling you, what I'm saying is this is really important. And nothing will make an employee feel dumber than doing the thing that the boss says every single day not to do, right?
Yeah.
So if they just mess up once and you're like, what have I been telling you every single day or every single week or whatever, every meeting I've repeated over and over, and you did it, you know, now they're going to be like, oh, I'm never doing that again. Because,
exactly.
You know, so I really, that's what I try to do. And it's hard because as a boss, you know, you want to feel like a nag, you know, and
I know. You want to be liked by everyone.
You want to trust your workers.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's also part of your job. I mean, that's management is reminders.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good advice, is just being consistent and being making sure that you're continually putting that thought in their mind, whether it's safety, whether it's efficiency, whatever it may be, that the repetition definitely reinforces that. So awesome, man. Well, thank you. That was a great tip. And Jake, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. Flowmies, again, the website is learntocleanwindows.com. Just all one word there, mushed together behind the .com. And check it out. It is, if you're an employer and you have techs, this is definitely something that you want to look at. It's going to bring value to your business. Thanks again. Thank you, Flowmies, for listening. And Jake, I wish you well, and I wish you continued success in your entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
All right, Flowmies, you have a great weekend. Thanks so much. And as always, flow on.